Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I really like. For today's episode, I'm talking about the latest episode of Limitless. This is the season finale, or at least part one of the season finale, and I really like this episode. Essentially, we're dealing with Brian, like he's been kicked out of the FBI. It's been like, was it 4 weeks? Or 4 months? I think it was weeks, right? I can't remember. It's been a while, and basically he's kind of living a daily life. He's moved back in with his parents, but now he has to pay rent, so he's got a regular job. But he's still looking for Piper, and he's trying to still help the FBI out too, because it's something we see very interestingly enough in this episode. Is Brian kind of feels useless. It's like because Brian spent so much of his time on NZT feeling special. Now he's not special anymore. He can't do the whole investigation, can't work with the FBI. It's mainly about finding Piper, but he could just leave that up to the FBI. But there's just because he's gotten so used to going out, do the whole investigation thing, he kind of longs for that and he misses it. He misses kind of feeling special. He hates kind of feeling useless. He even on multiple times throughout the episode telling Rebecca's like, "Oh yeah, you can braid me and just give me some NZT and I can help you guys out," almost sounding like an addict. But sadly, they're not going to, because it's like he can no longer work with the FBI. And because of that whole situation, Rebecca is super reluctant to listen to anything Brian says. I mean, granted, he brings her like leads here and there connected to the case, because now NZT has gone kind of like it's back on the streets, but in like larger quantities than it's ever been before. Like during the movie we saw the Limitless movie, we saw NCT being on the streets, but wasn't, at least in the droves that we're seeing it now. It's like literally everyone is getting their hands on it and selling it to different people. I love at one point we meet a guy in the whole drug selling business, meet a guy named Hades, and Brian has suggested like, oh, changing his name, and he's like, oh, my mom or grandma used to call me Pumpkin. So because he's basically saying like, yeah, like death metal people like myself, yeah, we're totally into it. We'd totally go to a guy named Hades. But then you have like 18-year-olds who are a little intimidated by that name, but suggesting changing his name to kind of increase productivity, increase his sales. So I guess he's going to go by Pumpkin from now on. I feel a little weird if I mean, not saying I would buy drugs, but I feel like that'd be kind of weird coming across a guy named Pumpkin and buying drugs from him. Granted, I guess in his case, it's like, I don't know, I feel like I'd laugh a little bit, but, considering his size, he'd probably end up beating the crap out of me, but still. Side note, I know it's like a nitpicky thing. I kept wondering, like, why I recognize the actor. I recognize him from Blacklist. He's the guy that Liz worked with when she was holding Tom captive in season 2. That's where I recognize him from. But continuing on, but he did eventually get his hand. Brian did eventually get his hands on some NZT. Granted, he didn't get it from the FBI. He got it from a party. And it's very interesting when you see all the different people on NZT, all the different aspects, because it's like they have very different approaches than Brian did, because Brian put all his focus on investigation, and in their regards, like there's one girl we meet in an episode who is trying to prove Taylor Swift is a part of the Illuminati, and that Beyonce, she's doing all this elaborate explaining of how Taylor Swift and Beyonce are part of the Illuminati, and Brian ended up getting some information off her by saying like, oh, he heard from somebody that basically there's proof that essentially she was connected to the Freemasons or something like that. So that was kind of neat. And you see all sorts of people. But essentially we met a Pyrrhicon. I can't remember his name. It's essentially the guy that Brian's looking for most of the episode, because essentially he has a connection to Sands. Essentially everyone thought it was kind of it's the other name that NZT is going by on the streets. Brian ended up figuring out, oh, it's actually a dude's name. It's the guy who helped make NZT, or he's currently distributing it, and he just basically named it after himself. And Brian ended up tracking him down, and he kind of explained the fact is that he's putting it out there because, granted, he's never tasted it, taken it himself, but he just kind of wants to set it free just to see what happens. And you just have, I really like, we kind of have a balance of like a lot of stuff in Brian's life. We have Rebecca kind of telling him that he can't take NZT anymore because obviously because of the whole immunity shot, they don't know whether or not he can handle it or not. But with certain ways Brian was acting in this episode, kind of like his head was hurting or he was kind of a little out of it, makes me think his immunity shot is wearing off. I mean, that's what I'm saying. He didn't really, there wasn't too much attention called to it, but just the way he was acting, it made me think like his immunity shot is wearing off. Because there's even a point like he was kind of thinking like, because Rebecca, one of his leads ended up leading to a guy, but, Rebecca thought he was wrong because the DEA guy led them to taking one particular guy who led them to a whole bunch of other people that they took down. And Brian was actually thinking he was wrong. Maybe, the pill wasn't as potent because it was laced or cut with other stuff. So it wasn't like a true NZT pill or whatever. But what I really love is the twist of finding out that that DEA guy works with Sands. He's a part of what Brian refers to as the Legion of Whom. And I love the little banter between him, his brother, and his sister at the beginning of the episode, calling them the Legion of Whom. They're like, isn't it actually the Legion of Who? And he's just like, just shut up, just stop talking. We're looking like all the people whom are a part of this organization. It's just like, yeah, I'm pretty sure, yeah, it should totally be who. And I love that even the FBI, because it was kind of a joke between him and Rebecca. So Rebecca's kind of like, yeah, even at the FBI, we're referring to them as a Legion of Whom. And he's like, oh, you guys are miss me, don't you? But anyway, you ended up finding out that that DEA guy is part of the Legion of Whom. And, he ended up, this whole thing was a setup because those people that they arrested weren't working for Sands. They were working for Moore. From what it seems like, I don't know if they are exactly his last line of defense, but apparently they were a line of defense of stopping Sands from progressing, pushing his plan forward. Because the whole thing put NZT on the market, kind of putting it out, like flooding the market with it. The streets with it specifically. I don't know why I really used the term market. I should have just said streets. It was all to lead up to this, for the sole purpose of, getting himself out. And Home Dude, the DEA guy, hit it well because even Brian mentioned the fact is, normally you can tell the way someone acts as well as their breathing and stuff like that. But I guess it's because he's such a trained professional. Because it seems like a lot of people on Sand's team, I mean, granted, we've only met 2 of them, but it seems like he's going to surround himself with people who are just as well trained as he is to, take NZT. And so they ended up killing all those people who were connected to Moore. Like I said, I don't know if they're particularly his last line of defense against Sands, because he obviously, Moore is the type of guy that has contingency upon contingencies because he's been taking NZT for a while. So, but what really gets me is now that I'm thinking about it, has Sands ever taken NZT? We've seen him kind of, taking Piper, obviously, for the immunity shot, and it seems like people, amongst his people, they take NZT, but it's does he himself take NZT? I don't think he's actually taken any yet, so. And it does make me wonder, is Piper alive? I feel like Piper has to be alive, because, I don't know. It'd be sad if she wouldn't. I mean, granted, those how these type of situations end up happening. It's like someone gets captured and someone fights and works so hard to get them back just to lose them and find out oh, I missed them by this short amount of time because, they were no longer useful, so they were killed. I mean, because, his dad had talked to someone who essentially said that he didn't think essentially he hired a private eye to look for Piper, but, didn't come up with anything. And essentially he was trying to get Brian to, he's like, you have to accept the fact that she might be dead, so. With the way the episode ends, it is seeming like Brian is temporarily lining back up with the FBI because he is the one that kind of figured it out before everyone else. And he's kind of like, this is why you guys didn't see it because you didn't have someone with NCT, you didn't have someone like me. He's like, not to kind of toot my own horn, but you don't have anyone like me on the team. So they are going to temporarily join together so that they can take down Sands, because it's kind of interesting because we're coming to two sides of this, because it's like essentially to me they're gonna, what will the FBI do? Will they stay on their own side, or will they team up with more? Because that's gonna be very interesting. It's like he has to make an appearance in part two, because it's like I just don't know like how this is all going to end, because it's like, because it does make you wonder if a lot of the stuff that Mora's, quote unquote responsible for was at 100% Sands doing it on his own. If that were the case, Mora would have, handled Sands long before now. So all this bad stuff he's done in the past, Sands done in the past, while he was working for Mora, was under Mora's, control. So it's like, I don't know. Because it's like in this situation, it's like, do you go with the devil you don't know or the devil you do know? Because it's like, I doubt the FBI is really going to work with either one. Because I mean, definitely not Sands, but I mean, like working with Moore to take down Sands. Granted, because I'm pretty sure the FBI is going to want to take him down. But I'm feeling like it's going to come down to a situation where they're going to have to temporarily align themselves with Moore if they want to stop Sands and his Legion of Whom. But I really like that, because that's another thing too. We still don't even know what they look like. Other than the DEA guy, we've literally only met one other member of the Legion of Doom, of whom I let that slip. The lady who was telling him to kill Rebecca and Brian, even though Sands really likes Brian. Anyway, I really love this show, and I cannot wait to see part two of this finale. It's going to be amazing. I just know it is. But that's really all I want to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, love life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.